Welcome, everyone. So nice to see you. We're going to get started in just 1 minute. Thanks for your patience. We were just letting a few more people get parked and come on in.
Ready? There we go. I'm part of the Minnesota group. I'm kidding. Hi, I'm Randy. I grew up with them.
You know them from way back?
Yeah, he was my boyfriend.
Way back. My Hebrew's first girl I ever held hands with and went roller skating.
With his dad.
Shoshana, right?
Yeah, Shoshana. Hessa. I don't know Steve.
Okay. Make sure your mics are. Just make sure your mic is on. Yours is on. Well, good evening, everyone. It is so beautiful to see all of your faces here in our Plotkin Chapel. And I know we have a lot of folks joining us online. So wherever you're streaming from, thank you so much for joining us here at Stephen Wise Temple. I'm incredibly grateful to Peter Himmelman and Rabbi Steve Leder for their time tonight. It looks like we have a friendly crowd, gentlemen. These folks need no introduction. People always say that before they give a little introduction, but let me do it because maybe there's a few people in here or a few people who stumbled onto our website who don't know them. So I'll just say a few words, but I feel so lucky to know them both. Peter Himmelman, who's my newer friend, is a Grammy and Emmy nominated singer, songwriter, and I was just talking to him about one of my favorite albums of his that I was listening to this afternoon to get in the mood for our conversation. He's also an author, a film composer, entrepreneur, and he has copies of his new book right outside, Suspended by No String. And so after our time together, you can get yourself a copy. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I'm so glad that you're here with us, Peter. Such a creative spirit and such a funny and amazing human being. And Rabbi Steve Leder, who I first met when I was 18 years old, which was quite a few years ago. Steve was, I think, in his second year maybe at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, and I was working at Wilshire Boulevard Temple camps, and he took me under his wing and was a great mentor to me then. And at the time, I still wasn't certain at all that I wanted to pursue the rabbinate, but with the influence of Rabbi Leder and our camp director that summer, Rabbi Bob Davis, it was abundantly clear to me soon that that was the kind of work I wanted to be a part of. And when I applied to rabbinical school, Steve had the good sense and great judgment to write me a recommendation, which they're not supposed to share these recommendations with the student, but then I went to work at the Hebrew Union College, and I actually found my file. So I have it, and he said the nicest things about me. So I'm incredibly indebted to Steve for so many of those reasons. And when I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to become senior rabbi here at Stephen Wise Temple, one of the very first phone calls I got was from Rabbi Leder saying, Mazel Tov, I'm here for you, I'm rooting for you. Anytime you need me, I'll be there for you. And he has been, every time I've needed him. In addition to being an extraordinary rabbi and a great mentor, he's also a New York Times best-selling author, and he has some of his books right outside. And I was just going back through a conversation that I had with Rabbi Leder a few years ago about his book, The Beauty of What Remains, which was particularly meaningful to me. But he's got a lot of his other books out there. So I'm so grateful to the two of you. And one of the things that I was delighted to learn, I didn't know my entire life, but at some point in my life, I came to understand that this guy who I had been a big fan of his music, but had never met him, and this mentor of mine who I've been a big fan of his rabbinate and his personhood, are childhood friends. And not like they went to the same school in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Not that, but they were like best friends. So I really want to hear the origin story of this unbelievable friendship. Who wants to go first?
I was in 7th grade math class, and I saw this exceedingly handsome man. I was drawn to him not only for his looks and his Jewfro, but for wisdom that issued from him. I remember our first conversation had to do with Israel. And I had gone to Israel a few times, and you mentioned that you'd gone or were very interested in Israel, of all things. St. Louis Park is where we came from. If anyone had seen the Coen Brothers movie, A Serious Man, it took place there. Yeah, Randy said that. I'm going to give you a mic soon, so you're going to get up to you can verify. He doesn't need it. Verify everything you say. But the colloquial and somewhat derisive word for St. Louis Park had been as meaningful. St. Jewish Park. And it wasn't said in laudable terms. It was meant to say, in my mind, why is it that the, let's say, maximum 3 or 4% Jews at the school are doing so much and achieving so well? What kind of nefarious activity must they be into? That's how I always interpreted it. And I thought I had an ally in such thoughts with Stephen Zane Leader.
So I don't remember when we first met, but it was 7th grade. It's different in Minnesota. There's junior high school, not middle school. So you're in junior high school, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and then 10th grade you go to high school. So it was definitely 7th grade. And Pete was the funniest, coolest kid in the school. And I was drawn to you. I don't know why. And I think you were playing guitar. You were into music then, and I'd been taking drum lessons since I was 5 years old. And and I was not a very good drummer, but I really wanted to play in a band with Pete. So I made up this whole story about how I was in a band, which I wasn't, of course. That was the beginning of my stellar career as a fundraiser. But I did, with my bar mitzvah money, I bought a set of Black Beauty Slingerland drums and Zildjian cymbals from Leo Fine's music store
it so well.
called Fine Music. And I took lessons there, and so we started this little band. But my fondest memories of Pete when we were that age is they're all about laughing. It's just laughter, and I can to this day recount in absolute minute detail the funny things that happened to us and that we did together, and that the classes we got kicked out of because we couldn't stop laughing. And
most of the stories, I think, would be inappropriate in front of the Sefer Torahs.
Well, it's closed. The Aron is closed. I think it's fine.
Here's another thing. This is a deeper look, a more serious look at all that humor. When you're drawn to somebody, you see somebody, there's so many people, but you're attracted to a particular number of them. You're not attracted universally. And there was something about the humor, which was a means of communication, to say, I see you understanding the way I do, that there's something askew.
We see the world the same way.
There's something amiss. There's a paradox at play that we can't understand and can't, put into words, nor can we now. It's even getting more difficult the older we get. But there was this love that was formed because we spoke the same language. And we hadn't spoken in so long. And now that back together, now when I hear you talking, I remember what was so attractive about you, and that the fact that he went into the rabbinate, and people at the high school, like Steve Leader in the rabbinate, I'm like, what are you talking about? He's a brilliant person. He's a great writer. He's a great speaker and communicator. It makes perfect sense.
It's very interesting, our path that we took, because when we were kids, and let's just say high school, I was we were in music together and all that stuff, and look out now. And I was really, really into Judaism. and really into Bob Dylan. Pete, at that point, was not as into Judaism. That, to my mind, was born out of the loss of your father in many ways. And, that's when I saw you really deepen spiritually.
I think that we were both first of all, to be into Judaism, it's hard to define that at any point. Are you frum? Do you keep Shabbos? Those are certain indicators, but people that keep Shabbos are not necessarily into Judaism. It becomes a habit. I happen to keep Shabbos, and sometimes it's just a habit. But Jewish identity, a certain certitude that you're carrying a legacy with you. This was something that I knew at a very young age. And part of it was in Minnesota, you felt this otherness. Some Jewish people might have recoiled from it. It cast me further into it. So I didn't know much about religion. I didn't know anyone that kept kosher. I thought it was quaint. Like,
But you also didn't know many Gentiles, right?
me? Are you
Yeah.
kidding?
No, at first. I mean,
No,
in your childhood.
Oh my God, no! It was probably more than Jews. It was-
Really?
Some of my best friends are Gentiles.
With
I mean,
me, it was the opposite.
no. I was very, very familiar with deer hunting people and fishermen.
but-
people that would take their fish and freeze them in a deep freezer. No, seriously.
No, yes.
And they talk like this, and
yeah.
oh gosh.
Yeah?
Oh, crepe now.
Oh, come on now.
I always thought
Oh,
that
Pete.
if I had to, like, people switching gears here, like in Israel, they're the Mistadrim, and they're joined the Mossad in the early days, where they would be from countries like Iraq, and they talk like this, and they could speak Arabic and very well. If I had to pretend that I was non-Jewish, except for certain physiological traits that would give me away, could I do it? I'd be like, oh, great, yeah, that's a Evinrude 540 motor. Geez, that'll get you a bunch of, you go out and catch muskies with that thing? Oh, man. Oh, he's Jewish? Oh, God, no. You could fit in if you had to, but
Yeah. You had to be
I
able
just
to
lost
fit
a job there.
in. You had to be able to fit in. My dad owned a
Oh,
junkyard.
yeah, he fit in.
My dad and my uncle owned not a metal recycling facility, a junkyard. Yeah. Okay. And so that was the world of like ex-cons and mafia guys and poor people selling tin cans. And so at work, when I went to work with my dad, which was how I saw my dad, we were exposed to all of that. There was no snob in my dad, and there was no snob in us. And the difference, I think Yiddishkeit is the best word for what you're trying to explain. It's like our environment was infused with Yiddishkeit. Not so much religiosity, but definitely a cultural Judaism. I walked to the school bus in the morning with 100 Jewish kids just from my street. Decatur Lane had about 30 houses on it. 28
you were
of
in
them
the
Jews,
Jewish area.
right? And I mean, this was a densely Jewish. I really didn't spend a lot of time with non-Jews until I was in college.
Different from
You were different, right? And I think another critical difference in terms of how we ended up is, and I think it was your uncle really who deserves so much of the credit. But Pete grew up in a family that made room for creativity, and I grew up in a family that discouraged it because I had to make a living. And any kind of creative pursuit was summarily dismissed as a complete and total waste of time. You want to be a musician? Forget it. You want to be a writer? Forget it. You want to be an actor? Forget it. Forget it, forget it. My junior year of college, my conversation with my father about my career path went like this. Neither of my parents went to college. They were 17 and 18 when they got married. They had 5 kids before they were 30. And my dad's conversation with me about my career path was, well, Stephen, I think you could go to law school and take over Leader Brothers, or you could not go to law school and take over Leader Brothers. Those were my career choices. Now, there was one notable exception. And also, like, this is not about my sorry-ass childhood, but my mother was so overwhelmed being married at 17 and having 5 kids and a husband who was not helpful in that way. And she wouldn't drive us anywhere. You know, forget, you want to play baseball, good luck. Ride your bike, it's fine. If you can get there and get home, that's fine. There was one notable exception, and that was anything related to Yiddishkeit or the synagogue. That was a great idea and permissible. And so that is where I went to express my creativity, because I had no place else to express my creativity. And I loved it, by the way, because it was, like, I remember going in the sanctuary at Temple Israel in Minneapolis, and it was like the most beautiful room I'd ever seen in my life. And it was not that great, but we're talking about Minneapolis here.
It's not that great.
But for Minneapolis, and I think that my parents' narrow-mindedness actually ended up leading me to the path that I belonged on, which is the crazy thing. Like, I think they probably knew more than I gave them credit for. And I think yours knew more than maybe we give them credit for, because they gave you the room. They gave you the room to create.
Yeah, I think that they gave me a ton of room. I was not totally feral, but I was close to it.
Yeah. But in all fairness, isn't that true of all of us?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like my kids, who are adults and doing well, they didn't have a modicum of the freedom that I had. And I'm not saying that thwarted them from any advancement, but I mean, when I look back at the shenanigans, it was, put it this way, I was in a band. I eschewed all higher education. I had to double check and see that I actually passed high school. I did, in fact. But we would go in these places in Nebraska and North Dakota and leave in the middle of the night, packing up all our stuff, sweaty, and drive in a broken down car. One guy's car that we all traded cars, who was going to drive, you could see the road passing. And no one had a thought that if the car had broken down in the 17 below, no one around, we would have all been dead. And it wasn't a thought. And my parents didn't consider it either. But the freedom, I don't know, it just allowed, at least for me, I don't know even how to express it. It just was so great and wonderful, and none of it was neglect. I never felt for 1 second that I wasn't totally loved and totally supported. That's a very interesting kind of synergy.
Yeah, I actually think I was neglected. No, I'm being serious. My parents remember, 5 of us were 11 years. We span 11 years. When all 3 of my sisters were out of the house and I turned 16, the backstory of this is my father and my uncle had Leader Brothers, and they hated each other. They hated each other. It's actually a kind of Greek tragedy how that all worked out, which I'll share with you in a moment. But they hated each other to the point that neither one would sell to the other one because they wanted to be the last one standing. And my uncle had a condominium in Hollywood, Florida. My parents had one in Coronado. And when my dad was in Minneapolis, my uncle was in Florida. My uncle would come back, my dad would go to California. And they did this for about 25 years. And now, why am I saying I was neglected? Not terribly neglected. However, my parents, the minute I got my driver's license, my dad worked every other month for 25 years. He was basically semi-retired in his 40s. And they would just leave me and Greg, and it would be like, there's money in the bean pot, the freezer's full for the microwave, we'll be back in a month, and that was it.
Wait, and how old were you at this
I
time?
was 16.
Yeah.
My little brother was 14.
Okay. Now this isn't like top our neglect. I thought they had given me space. I never thought it was neglect. Brings back a memory. I was failing school. My grade average in general in high school was literally about a D to D minus. I mentioned to somebody here that I got a D minus in music as well. Music theory, I didn't understand it. It was like, what is this? My parents went to Israel for a month, and I was 14. I didn't have a license or anything. And I stayed at my grandma Min's house, which meant I stayed by myself and did anything I want. At one point, my cousin and I had played strip poker with my girlfriend at 2 in the morning. And then in the morning, we went downtown on a bus. The police were after us. They never found us. This is just a lightweight of the shenanigan. And all I can say was, it was freedom and space. Never go to Israel and leave your child with an elderly grandparent.
Especially one named Min, because I
Min.
had an
You had a
Aunt
Min?
Minnie, and boy, I tell you. So 2 questions, and then just all of this talk about creativity. Peter, I'm craving a song. So earlier we talked about some of your music, and of the 1,000+ songs you've written, you know every single one of them by heart. So I know if I mentioned any one of them, you could just play it. But I want to give you the freedom to pick any darn song you want. That's coming up after this question, which is the band you started, the band that started it all. What was the name of the band? And just give me one of the hits that you like to play.
Oh, well, yeah, the band that I started pre-Steve Leader, I was 11 or 12, we had a name, I think it was called The Reflections, probably a name of an old soul group. I never got sued because we never played in front of anyone, basically. The hit song was called Exit. And Exit was written, I'll tell you how my mind works. It was Drug Prevention Week. And you had those overhead projectors. You could take a thing and copy something from a magazine, and you would show it. And my drug prevention thing was, if you smoke pot or something, you would then see like dinosaurs and stuff. And the teacher thought, well, this is a great way to prevent a child from wanting to. I never wanted to get high more in my life. It was the greatest inducement. So the song Exit, which I wrote at 12, I could actually play it. You could play drums to it too. I think I remember the lyrics. By the way, we planned this out for years, this whole segment. Let me see. I never thought I'd be playing this song of all my others. It was my first real song.
You know what I'm going to ask you to play next, right?
I think
The original from
He's not going for
Birds.
marijuana in the wallet. I want to make it very clear.
No.
It's a drug-free zone.
I'm looking for a pick.
You straight there, this one.
Now,
So this is one of the first songs you ever wrote.
yeah, it's one of the first songs, and it's an enduring song. I'll explain. I don't usually explain my songs, but this song with its riff, it's still hard for me to play. And then you go bum, bum, bum. Okay, so the song is about a guy, and I was 11 or 12, who is making sexual advances in such a way that the intended romantic partner is scared off, and she exits his life. Next, due to the drug prevention inspiration, he then gets high and exits reality. The song Exit. Yeah. I love her and she loves me. It's a world of love and it's clear, can't you see? The night was cloudy, but the stars were bright. It gave her a terrible fright. You really got it going, but you're moving too fast. Hey, you better slow down or it won't last. Exit, 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 exit. She's gone, it's over, you're starting to cry. You keep it up and you're gonna die. You strike, no, your hopes are down and you pick up a J. It ain't gonna help you anyway. Now, here I had a tremolo pedal on my amp, so at this point I would hit the tremolo pedal and my voice would go wah la 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 la. I'll just, you strike a match and you let it burn. Now your mind is ready to turn. It's exit, exit, da da da. Woo!
No, I'm assuming when you were 12 years old, your yarmulke wasn't falling off at that point because.
Wasn't really, and I didn't have a yarmulke at that point. I would have been terrified to wear a yarmulke in public. That would have been horrifying.
For what reason? Just out of
Because,
adolescent embarrassment
like-
or anti-Semitism?
Just like there was a kid in high school. I can't remember his name. He now lives in Jerusalem.
Seth.
What's his name?
Seth Globus.
Seth Globus.
Yeah.
He wore a yarmulke.
Yeah.
And
after
now
he
he's
was-
living in Jerusalem. He's like 19
No,
kids.
he's in-
He's a total genius. And I used to look at him like, what's the deal with this dude in a yarmulke? But I also thought, why is he so cool and courageous? Or is he a total nerd? And now I see he was cool and courageous. What can I say?
It's the reason I know that is Seth was teased a lot
Yeah.
in high school, but never by me.
No, I mean, it
And
was like,
no, but he actually came up to me at one point and acknowledged that and thanked me. And I remember how heartbreaking it was because we weren't friends. I just wasn't mean to him. And there's this beautiful symmetry that I just want to point out before we move on musically. Pete and I kind of went like this. You know, there were years when we were really just in different orbits completely. You were on the road, you know, with the band, and I was working hard at Wilshire Boulevard Temple and staying put. And so, but we always shared this love of music, love of singer-songwriters. We should talk about Tom Waits, that concert, in a moment. But we loved singer-songwriters. And I was more into Judaism at that point, but you were certainly a proud and assertive Jew. And now we've sort of found each other again, and we're still like lovers of singer-songwriters, lovers of music, lovers of Torah, of God, of Israel, and we've come closer Jewishly too, I think.
Yeah.
But also, I think it has to do with the milieu in which we were raised, because we were apart for a long time, but we ended up in the same place.
It's interesting that those three things, which were, you know, when we first met, and I was like, who's that handsome dude? It was almost as if, and maybe this is like hyperbole, but probably not. When you meet somebody and you're attracted to them, there's a whole thing that goes on, some osmotic something. And it could have just been an understanding that this person, when I said we speak the same language, there's also an attraction to these things which all have to do with communication, each of them, and meaning and story. And I'm just trying to say it was a differentiated view than I think many people had. I'm not saying it was better or worse, although I think it was better, to be honest, but don't take that out. But it just was. And
We were very
and
fortunate.
it still is. That's an interesting point that you
Yeah.
brought up, this idea that it starts here, it goes, and now it comes here, and I don't know where it's going to go from here.
Yeah. Yeah. But only good.
Absolutely, all for toiv. It should only be good. A bracha for good, for everything.
Mazel and Glick.
Mazel and Glick and Simcha and Kvelling all the time.
Now that's like an authentic St. Louis Park accent, right? The one you just did.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
this is-
No. Come on now, Josh.
This is more like it, but sometimes you do hear Jews that talk
What
like
in the
this.
hell you mean?
No, but they
What are you paying for copper today, Lenny?
they talk, but the
Eh?
Jews say like this. Oh, so you're gonna when time is Kiddush? Oh, so you're what kind of? Oh gosh,
You
now
know,
we're-
Steve, the rabbi wasn't too good today. He wasn't
you
too
have
good.
to know that on Shabbos, you know, what can I tell you? And then it flows into, look, I don't know exactly what he's going to do, but Herb Goldstein, he's a wonderful guy. He's a mensch. And the more Jewish you are, the higher the pitch.
Yeah.
And the lower. It goes for Israeli, too, which is like,
Yeah.
Peter, we're on the border of Lebanon now, and you have to understand the people there are shooting at us.
No, we
Highs
were
and
lucky.
lows of Judaism.
We were lucky to be raised in that environment, and we were lucky that we were raised in an environment where the stratification of the socioeconomic ladder was almost nothing. Yeah. We all had the same, did the same, wore the same, drove the same, ate the same. There weren't a lot of options. It's why we left also. It's like, no, this is the double-edged sword of Minnesota and St. Louis Park. Everyone was working class or middle class. Everyone was Jewish. I mean, that's obviously hyperbolic, but it felt that way. And everyone was going to end up living 5 miles from the home they were raised in, running their father or their father-in-law's business. I mean, it was a very stultifying environment in a way. It was almost anti-creative. You know, it was this very maybe Swedish Lutheran sense of like the tall flower is going to get clipped. Don't be overly ambitious. Don't be a braggart. Don't talk about your accomplishments. Don't wash your car when you have a new car. Let it be dirty so people won't think that you're, seriously.
You know my dad, though. He was different. Too.
Yeah, your dad was different. Like, your dad was into cool shit. My dad was in, I mean, but we also went to a public high school that was phenomenal. We had high school teachers with PhDs.
Yeah. No, it was great.
It was an incredible. We had theater, we had sports, we had band, we had jazz band, we had orchestra, we had musicals, we had Shakespeare, we had TV production down in the basement with the AP English, AP. It was, without that, I don't know that we would have
Except
been where we are.
I have to understand, I didn't really partake of too much.
But you did. That's
I
bullshit.
mean, no, but I mean, I never.
Peter, we were in plays together.
Yeah.
You
We were
could
in
get
band
get
together.
a D- in music. You could get a D- in art history.
Oh, Mr. Krieger. Oh, God. Remember him? Mr. Krieger was the 9th grade algebra teacher, and I was so bad at I remember
Are you bad at math?
horrible. I don't know my multiplication tables past
Even
5.
now, I don't really.
I can't.
I'm so bad.
If you ask me what 8 times 7 is, I have to go 8 times 8 is 64, 63, 62, 6. Seriously, and I'm not dumb. It's just, but you loved high school. I mean, you weren't an academic, but like, come on.
He's saying I'm stupid. He's saying I'm dumb. I had that whole school rigged. I had all the teachers under my thumb. I got a D- average. Flunked out of music too. Some people said, what you doing, Himmelman? You tall, lanky Jew, I'm St. Jewish Park, walking in the dark, smoking a little pot, talking a lot with my man named Lita. Did a little time in the theater. I know he was gonna be a rabbi one day. And what do we say? We say it's true. The two of us was a couple of Jews. It's on my new record.
Now we.
Now, Peter, I've been with you long enough to know that you've been working on that song for several years. Am I right?
Several years.
So the creativity is extraordinary, and there were so many things that you said that I could relate to. I grew up in Omaha, which we didn't have the same accent. This is the flat Midwestern accent, but it's the same stories.
Same thing, yeah.
Same stories.
That's why we can relate. You're cool because of that.
I appreciate that. But thank you. But St. Louis Park was different from Omaha just in terms of the density. You had more Yiddishkeit than I had, and so that part I kind of listened to, and I had a little kinat sofrim, that kind of jealousy that our tradition allows. I was like, oh, I wish I'd have had a little bit more of that Yiddishkeit. Your love for Israel is so powerful, and in the time that we were planning for this and that I got to be with the two of you together, because I knew you separately, you would, each of you, default to these wonderful Israeli accents, and you both have great Hebrew, and then you would just be going back and forth riffing on the Israeli accent, which is its whole thing. But tell me about the connection to Israel, the love of Israel. When did that really begin? Because it's not something that is obvious, even though St. Louis Park had a rich Jewish community and lots of Yiddishkeit, it's very far from Israel.
Yeah. The first time I saw my father cry twice in my life. And the first time was when I was in 9th grade and my parents sat us down and told the 5 of us they were getting divorced, which did not happen, but that was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. And the second time was when he said goodbye to me at the airport, and I was 16 taking my first trip to Israel. And my dad was crying. And so I think that almost both explains and predates my love for Israel, but it was this passion for the Jewish people was there like day one in my life. And I had no idea Israel meant anything to my parents. And my father was weeping.
Yeah.
And so, look, at 16 I went, and I never looked back. Living there wasn't just as you know, an incredible experience. It was the worst and best time of my life. And you know, it's funny, I wasn't planning on getting into this tonight, but I sometimes, when I was 16 and I went to Israel, I went for a summer program, and I wanted to stay for a 6-month program. And the rabbis at that time, it was Hank Skirball and Alan Levine and David Foreman. They were the 3 big Reform rabbis who made Aliyah and put a Reform stake in the ground there. And I said, I want to stay. And they said, well, we'll call your parents. So they call my parents, and my father says, absolutely not. Because he was afraid I would never come home, really. And I often think about, what if my parents had given me a little more latitude, you know, a little more freedom, how much that might have changed my life. And then I married a woman who, you know, she went to Israel with me 3 or 4 times, but it's not. She'd rather go to Paris, to be honest. And she would. And so I haven't spent as much time there. I've led a million trips, but that's not really spending time in Israel. That's spending time on a bus. And but I think it really started something in me when I saw my dad cry as I was getting on the plane. That was a powerful statement to me about the centrality of Israel, even in a person who wasn't openly Zionistic.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, obviously, we might touch on 10/7 or we may not. What's the point? But my parents in 1967, the summer after the Six-Day War, or really the summer of it, so maybe August of 67, they were in Italy, and they thought, well, maybe with this cheap flight we can go to Israel, like, just, and they came with my mom had a list of relatives that had gone from Romania to Israel and not to, and they fell in love with the place. And the next summer was June of 1968, so I was 8 years old. And I think about this more now than ever. I think about what I'm going to say in a second all the time. I was 8 years old. I was a normal kid. I would eat like, grilled cheese sandwiches and watch Gilligan's Island. I would look for my dad's Japanese Playboys and his thing. I was a normal kid. But they brought us to Israel. My cousins and my grandma, we went en masse to Israel. Stayed in Netanya in this small house. And I mostly played with the ants. Incredible bunch of ants. And we went to the Kotel. We went everywhere. It was 1968. We went to Ramallah. We went everywhere. And I remember, this is a really intense memory. Things that you remember that you can feel in your hands, like a literal sense memory. I always have with me the sense of touching the Kotel for the first time. I just came back from Israel a few weeks ago. And I was 8 years old. I was a kid, and I was with my brother and my dad on the men's side, and I started to cry. Now, I keep thinking, why did I cry? Well, they taught us about this place in Hebrew school, but so what? Why would I cry? And I cried like enough that I didn't want my brother to see because he'd think I was weird. And what I see now in retrospect was we were surrounded by people that gave us all so much love. It was astounding to me that even at 8 years old, I could perceive it. And there was something about being in the company of our peoplehood, of which there are only 15 million. I didn't realize the numbers, but if I think about it today, it is infinitesimally small. There's no such thing as a Jewish religion, by the way. The word religion is denigrative. Just to give you a quick little history. Around Constantine's time, they chose the word Catholic, whatever that is in Latin, I don't know. And the word Catholic, it's very rarely used, but somebody said he's very Catholic about that, meaning it means everything. Like it's his certitude, its wholeness, it's everything. They gave Christianity that name to denigrate Judaism, which was the foundation of all their religion, so that it would be akin to Zoroastrian or some other religion. We're not a religion, we're a tribe, a peoplehood unlike any other on the face of the planet. And everybody knows that. People are not happy with that, some people. Why is it that St. Jewish Park was St. Jewish Park? Well, everyone's like the editor of the school thing. Everyone's doing things. I mean, who came from St. Louis Park? Just name the people.
Our little high school was this incubator of Jewish talent. Present company excluded, because we're the most obvious of on the list, I would say. But Tom Friedman, New York Times columnist, Al Franken, senator, started out at Dudley Riggs' Brave New Workshop. Peggy Orenstein, who's a New York Times
guitar player,
and also
half the band of Prince,
a writer, half Prince's band. I would say, it's the Coen brothers.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
it
it
has
it just goes on and on and on, and it shouldn't. Like, it makes no sense that this tiny little community in Minnesota would do what it does, and yet, like, these small incubators have profound importance. I was in St. Paul, which is Minneapolis. St. Paul is kind of like the city in the valley here. People kind of look down on St. Paul. It's a smaller community, much smaller Jewish community. And even less boring, I mean, even more boring than Minneapolis. But there's this little shul there called Mount Zion, okay? And I gave a speech there many years ago. And I just started the speech by saying, this is a small synagogue in a small community. Let me tell you who came out of this shul. Ruth Brin, one of the greatest Jewish poets ever. Debbie Friedman, who changed synagogue music in this country. Gunther Plaut, whose Torah commentary is fundamental to virtually all non-Orthodox Torah scholars and students. And on and on. Fritzie Schwartz, who was one of the great rabbis, Fred Schwartz, ended up in Chicago, but he started there. These small communities, because they're so tight, they have profound leverage and influence. And St. Louis Park High School, I mean, Neil Carlin, genius, right?
Tom Friedman writes about this in a chapter in his book, Thank You for Being Late. And it's a form of nepotism in a way, you might say. But when you have a people, and this is just my idea on this, nothing I say, by the way, is driven by any facts or data, I should know that. You have a people that's been an exilic people all around the world, dispersed for almost 3,000 years, but has stayed intact. So everyone knows everybody, and all the things that you've picked up, all the secrets, whether it's business or medicine or philosophy or poetry or music. In the Coen brothers movie, Serious Man, there was Samsky, your name was in there, and Meshbesher, if anyone remember. Meshbesher was the lawyer. But he was a real guy. That was a lawyer. And if you got arrested for pot, your dad would go to Meshbesher. If you wanted to get into Brown, you knew a guy that knew somebody at Brown. Yeah. If you needed a doctor, you knew the specialist. When they talk about the 1%, it isn't only financial. It's primarily the resources of this tribe. And this is the success of the tribe, and it's inimitable. It's can't also, just get it.
You know where that really occurred to me in a big way? This is a negative example, which is Bernie Madoff. How did Bernie Madoff rip off the American Jewish elite? Yeah. I'll tell you how he did it, because the way he did it is like injecting dye into the American Jewish ecosystem and seeing
poisonous
how information travels. He didn't do it through the synagogues. He didn't do it through the corporate world or the business world. He worked the country clubs, because that's where the dissemination of information between Jews at a certain level takes place in this country. And so the way Madoff did it was he took Oak Ridge in Minneapolis, Hillcrest here, Brentwood here. He knew how Jews communicate.
The native trust.
That's right.
And it was the betrayal of this trust that we rely upon.
He used the system.
Right. And so it's an inverse, or as you
That's
said,
right.
a negative view of that.
But it does prove how interconnected we are to this day. I don't think that's changed much at all. Where's Jody? Jody, are you here? Jodela. Oh. So Jody and I worked together at Wilshire Boulevard Temple for a lot of years, 10 years. And, you know, she used to joke that if anybody in the congregation had a problem or they needed something or whatever, she'd say, well, Steve will know somebody. And it was almost always true. Like, oh, yeah, I have a guy in Kathmandu who, yeah. And I do, but it's not because I'm something special. It's because I'm dialed in to a network.
I mean,
a global network.
Probably everybody in this room is dialed into
Yeah.
a network. I mean, you self-selected this thing and this shul, but you're those kind of people.
Yeah.
And
So
you
lem-
have this tribe of people that has this. Let me put it this way. I meet a guy in an airport. He's from Esfahan in Iran. You know, I don't really know him much, but he sees my yarmulke and he goes, "Are you Jewish?" We sit down together. What is our cultural connection, popular culture connection? Let's say nothing. I don't know any Persian songs, although I love Persian food and I'm a great Persian cook. But all of a sudden, I'm sitting next to a brother. And let me just put it this way. I used to drive a Ford, and it's a great car, but Henry Ford, akin to, let's say, a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates, he was the much beloved innovator, but he had a secret passion to sow hatred around the Jews, a people that he feared mightily. Now, I had the chance or the disadvantage to have read his book, which was called The International Jew. I don't know if anyone has read the book. I don't advise you buying it. It's a hugely popular book. It came in between the Protocols and Mein Kampf. It's fair to say, because Hitler had read it and he had some relationship with our dear automaker, that Mein Kampf wouldn't have been written without the International Jew. He spent his currency, civic and financial, on this excoriation and fear sowing around the Jew. And one of the conceits of the whole book was this, is it, putting a point on what we're just saying. He asks in the book, why is it that when a Gentile knocks on the door of a Gentile, his words, he meets a stranger? And when a Jew knocks on the door of a Jew, he meets a brother. And I don't know what to say about that, except it's damn true.
It is, but I worry about the longevity of that truth because what unites us as a people is not,
Someone's alarm is going off.
yeah,
If you
someone needs to,
turn the alarm off, that's fine. No problem.
yeah, just make sure your phones are off.
What key is it
everybody.
in?
Yeah. So the thing that concerns me is that the common denominator historically has been the text. And I don't know to what degree that continues to be true
no,
because
okay.
it's not food, it's
No,
not
no,
music,
100%,
it's not dance, it's not humor. Those are ancillary. What really, and it's not your neighborhood or, yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn, you too. It is the text. That is what has kept us together as a people, and that is diminishing.
So the reason that I have a more sanguine or positive look on this,
Because you're not a big congregational rabbi.
well, yeah, or because I have, close relationships with people for whom the text is fundamental.
Yeah,
to their
but
life.
that is a rarity, is what I'm telling you.
I don't think it's a rarity.
It's a rarity in. It is less common.
Yes,
Okay.
but-
today, most Jews can tell you who the
But I want to say
Jesus' mother's name, but not Moses' mother's
100%.
name.
But I want to say that just like the Jewish people, with their small numbers, have a greater, let's say, power.
Yes.
Those people also have a certain power to
Yes.
keep the fire of Judaism alive. The Jewish scholarship, Jewish knowledge, in my opinion, is in no danger of being lost.
No, Jewish scholarship and knowledge is not in danger of being lost. However, when you have let's just take the reform movement where and by the way, I'm going to get into trouble here, but it's not my shul, so who cares? So
And I retired anyway. I could
I'm
say
retired.
Just blow it up and then walk out the door.
you got a
That's-
match?
That's what you ought to do.
How do I phrase this?
Well, I want to be fair and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. When you have in the reform movement an intermarriage rate somewhere around 70, 75%, maybe 80%.
Wow.
So Jews marrying Jews in the reform movement is the exception, not the
I
rule.
had no idea.
That's why I'm sharing this, because
Okay, that's interesting.
this is a wake-up call. Now, 75% of the intermarried are Jewish men marrying non-Jewish women. And 75% of that 75% do not raise Jewish children. Now, you add to that the fact that replacement birth rate for Jews in America is 2.1 children per couple. That's what it would take just to stay
We're
even.
well into the negative integers.
We're at 1.7 now.
And you guys aren't good at math. You both said that.
No,
you
but
know,
this-
But
you
relative-
know
We're good
that
at
this math is
percentages.
not good.
It's not a
Not
geometry
good.
theorem.
So you have this massive intermarriage rate, which, by the way, I could make the case is a wonderful thing potentially for Judaism, bringing all these people in. None of us should be in the business of telling people who they should fall in love with and who they should marry. It's none of my business. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a Jew and a non-Jew choosing to be married. I don't. But I will say that, look, who doesn't know two Jews that got married that shouldn't have? Like, we all know two Jews who never should have gotten married. That is not really what I'm focusing on. And I don't think there's anything wrong with those choices. But you also have to look at the consequences of those choices for the people. And we're shrinking. We're down to 1.7 per couple. And we are 75% of the 75% of these kids are not being raised as Jews. Yes, some find their way back, but most do not.
Let me just jump in. You're talking about demography here. And
No, I'm
also,
talking about
well,
the
look,
attenuation of connection to the text.
I will say this at great risk of offending many people. But why not? I've done it all my life. I'm going to tell you what I told my kids. I told my kids, I just told you this, since they were very young, like one of them was in diapers, I took them to school, in a van. Everyone said a minivan. This is not good for your image. I'm like, what's my image? I said to them, let it be known. Some of these kids didn't even know what I was talking about. But let it be known, and this is not only once said, I demand and expect that each of you will marry Jews. This is very strict. It's something that your father demands and your mother demands. And I have no qualms about saying it. I'm not deriding anyone who's making another choice, but my kids have married Jews, and they have propagated, and their grandchildren. And somewhere along the line, it behooves anyone who's interested in the continuity of the Jewish people to be a little more discerning about saying this out loud.
Yeah.
And there's a great reluctance to say, this is kosher, this is treif, this is this. We're very, let me just give you a metaphor here. The guitar, this is way abstract, but follow me. My wife would be kicking me now, like, who's going to understand what you're saying? The guitar is like a freedom, right? It's all sorts of freedom. Woo! But the guitar is actually exactitude. It is structural, it is architectural, it is precise. So let me just talk about what happens when you don't have the rules with guitar. You could play anything, man. Let's just play freedom. It sounds bad. structure is the portal to all freedom. This is all I'm going to say on the matter.
Okay, now that your guitar is really out of tune,
Tune it, though.
now's the time.
It's
Now's
you
the
know
time
book,
to.
The Insecurity of Freedom.
Insecurity.
The Insecurity of Freedom. We'll have to talk about it because yes.
What is it? I don't
Well, it's essentially this notion that freedom too much freedom creates insecurity. The first time I ever learned about this was a
Sounds
study of children on a playground. This is why boundaries are important. When they took a group of children, put them on a playground with no fences, and they all stayed in the middle. Then they put the same kids on a playground with fences, and they explored all the way to the edges of the playground
that's
because they
basically it.
felt
That's exactly
they
it.
felt safe enough with boundaries to do that. And listen, I only got into the intermarriage thing just to say that I am not as sanguine as you are that we will always have the critical mass of people who do connect and understand and live by the text. It's diminishing. It just is. And Judaism has never been tested in a volitional environment like Western civilization.
True.
Never. And we don't know. But I think that's why I think the text is so important. If we don't hold fast to Torah, we become a social club.
This is what I'm saying. Judaism is not a religion. It's a peoplehood predicated on Torah.
That's right.
Not on
and
bagels.
it's not a social club. That's
That's
right.
its foundation.
I'd have a question for you, and then we'll see, Peter, you'll give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down on the piece we talked about potentially doing. But here's the question. It relates to this conversation that just happened, but it also relates to what it was to grow up in a place like St. Louis Park, what it was for me to grow up in a place like Omaha, and I'm sure there's 100 stories in this room and for the people joining online that have a lot of similarities. So we're seeing post-October 7th this incredible uptick in anti-Semitism here in America, here in our own city of Los Angeles, and of course around the world in ways that some might in this room say, not surprised. I thought this was going to happen at some point, and there it was. But others, myself being in that camp, who, if you'd have told me, go back to our days at Genneling Hilltop Camp, thank you. If you'd have said, someday, my boy, you're going to grow up, you're going to become a rabbi, you're going to end up here on the west coast of the United States of America, and a good percentage of your time, 20, 25, 30%, 40% of your time is going to be focused on combating anti-Semitism, hatred of Israel. Fully $1 million a year of your synagogue budget is going to be spent on security. You're going to have armed guards wearing body armor. And you wouldn't think of going into a Jewish space if you didn't see those armed guards with their body armor. Rabbi Leader, I would have said, oh, wow, that's pretty dark and paranoid, and no, that's not where we're headed. And yet, we are in this place. So one other thought and then the question. So the thought is that one of our teachers, Rabbi David Ellenson of blessed memory, once, he was a sociologist of religion, also a rabbi, of course, but one of the things he once taught me that is so obvious once you hear it, but it's not obvious just thinking about it, is he said, do you know what the biggest driver of intermarriage is? So technically it's called exogamy and endogamy. Exogamy is marrying out, endogamy is marrying in. He said, what's the biggest driver of intermarriage? What do you think it is? Just give me some ideas. Acceptance is intermarriage. Yeah, what else? Anyone's got an idea? What drives it? Freedom, yeah. Opposition, well, I'll just cut to the chase. What Rabbi Ellenson taught me is that the biggest driver of intermarriage is anti-Semitism. It relates to what you just said. But when anti-Semitism is high, intermarriage is low. And when anti-Semitism is low, intermarriage is high. Point being, if you're a minority people, you're surrounded by others, the likelihood that you might end up with some of those other folks around you who are delightful, many of them in many ways, goes up when the barrier to that relationship goes down. And so there aren't a lot of silver linings I can think of to an increase in anti-Semitism, but potentially one of them is a deeper sense of Jewish identity and a sense of like, well, I think I have a better idea now of who I am. And there might even be more people, they might not have a father like Peter Himmelman who says, kids, I want you to marry someone who's Jewish. It matters to me, and I'll tell you why, and I want that for you. But the reality of the world in which they live will drive that. So my question for you with all of that background is, how are you responding as parents, as a grandparent? How are you responding to this extraordinary uptick in anti-Semitism in your own life, in your creative life, in your spiritual life?
Well, let me begin by saying that every generation of Jews gets its wake-up call. This is ours. And understanding that broader view is what's given me strength and the desire to lead. I'm stepping down. March 1st, I'll be completely, I will have fulfilled all of my contractual obligations to Wilshire Boulevard Temple, and I'll be like leaning into other things. But the wake-up call is a necessary component to being fully Jewish. You know this. The Talmud says when the Messiah comes, all Jewish holidays will cease to exist except one. Which one? Purim. Why? Because even in the Olam Haba, anti-Semitism will exist. Seriously, that's how much a part of the Jewish experience the rabbis considered Jew hatred to be. Knowing that actually empowers. For me, it's like, this is my nature too. I am glad October 7th happened while I was still senior rabbi, because I wanted the ball in my hands. I wanted to be the one setting the direction and intentions and helping to fight back and helping to funnel money to people who are good at fighting Jew hatred, etc. I felt the same way during COVID. It sounds odd, but COVID was a very powerful and invigorating period of my rabbinate because I was really called to lead. And I was glad. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. I'll take the shot. And so for me, that was, oddly, I'm just being honest, it was so tragic and yet so invigorating at the same time, like a real call to serve and a call to action. And I'm just doing it by going back to the OG Judaism that has sustained us all. Do you want to know? You want to know what to do right now? Tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah. That's what you should be doing right now, because that's how we survive these difficult decrees. We don't need to invent anything new in Judaism to know how to live through this period and come out the other end of it with a real evolutionary change and improvement. That's what we've been doing forever. And knowing that, I think, is extremely helpful and ennobling and inspiring, that the end result of this is going to be a better American Jewish community. It's going to be a better Israel, and it's going to be a better future for the Jewish people.
Well, Steve, I was waiting to hear what you had to say. I was ready to rebut anything that I didn't agree with. I'm just generally a disagreeable person. Now, this is where we really meet. This is exactly where we meet. First of all, 10-7, there's nobody in this room, because again, you self-selected, but I have yet to meet a Jew, and I've traveled a lot, that wasn't somehow reconnecting with something deeply rooted. One of the issues that I've been writing about and talking about is to focus less on anti-Semitism, on the people that hate us, and putting energy in that direction. Obviously, unfortunately, my grandchildren have to have a guy with a long gun in the city that they live and body armor in front of the school. Then we become inured to it because, wow, that's just common, but it shouldn't be. But the focus, as you said, the OG Judaism, is on proactive Judaism. That is the answer, the antidote. It doesn't, ignore the cautions that we need to take and the pronouncements that we might need to take and the denunciation of those who are hating us. But all that needs to be subsumed into a greater attachment to Judaism. And we have this very great mechanism. Somebody asked me the other day, as a guy that I don't really know but reads my stuff, he goes, I wonder, do you think I should wear one of, this is when the hostages were not back and there's one hostage that still has to be remained, should I wear that yellow pin? Like, of course you should. But let me give you another hint. Why don't you put on tefillin? That's 3,300-year-old, axiomatic, fundamental of Judaism. Well, I'm not religious. So what? Put on tefillin. Eat one less shrimp. Do something that's categorically Jewish. That is how we deal with the people that hate us. We become stronger in our identity. By the way, that is exactly how I disagree with your Rabbi Ellison. The way that we counter intermarriage, if that's important, is that we become more Jewish. Once you have a desire to be more Jewish, you understand the importance of Jewish continuity. It's very simple. The less attached we are to our roots, the more we move from them. And I think that's an imperative, and I'm certainly not embarrassed to say that.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, I think that Judaism is fundamentally a battle against fatalism.
Yes,
It's a battle against fatalism, and that is, without that, I don't see how we survive. If we're fatalists, we can only survive as Jews with this faith and belief that we can change the future. We cannot undo the past, but we can deepen ourselves as Jews.
The tribe, look to our great entrepreneur and innovator.
Yeah,
You knock on the door and you meet a brother. Look around the room. This is hope.
Yeah.
The antidote and the antonym of fatalism.
My motto is don't despair. That's the motto of the Jew. Yeah. Do not despair. It is not Jewish. Pessimism is not Jewish.
Popular song, I think it was called I think it was Hatikva, the hope.
All right, you guys, the reason I brought my guitar was not so that I would play the guitar, but because when Peter put his guitar out of tune, there'd be a backup guitar for him.
Yeah,
so what I'd love to end with, also I'd love to hear this guitar played really well. So Peter is an extraordinarily talented songwriter, and you should go to peterhimmelman.com. You should Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your music, make sure you're listening to Peter Himmelman songs if you're not already doing so. But one of the things he's incredibly adept at, and you just heard this a little bit earlier, is writing a song on the spot. So we talked earlier about maybe having you guys help us write that song, but what I think might be kind of fun to close our evening, Peter, is, and Steve might be willing to help on the drums and also with the creative idea, but think about some of the major themes of what we talked about tonight, whether it was growing up in St. Louis Park, whether it was your relationships with your families, fathers, Aunt Min.
I got some ideas.
I'd love you to think about ways. I'm stalling. Not that you need my extra time, but I'd love you to think of a way to pull it all together.
Okay, let me just let's go to the audience now. Who's a brave and courageous and somewhat literate person that would like to just say yes to my question without knowing what it is? Anyone? Yes, ma'am, come up, please. Hey, escort her. Let me come up, ma'am. Let me come.
All right, something's going to happen here, and I don't know what it is.
Okay, hold on.
Let me help you. Let me help you.
Get her a chair. She can sit. Take my chair. You and I will have a conference together.
What are we doing? I have no idea what's happening. Come on up.
Here, you sit there. It's not going to be embarrassing. Ladies and gentlemen, what's your name?
Sandra, ladies and gentlemen, right here.
Wait. Okay. I need another chair too then.
Oh,
No, you guys move over a second.
all right.
Wait. I don't want to get this mess up anything here.
Sit next to her, I'll bring you a chair, then they'll see you online.
Okay, that's fine. You bring a chair.
Bring a chair.
Okay.
Got a chair. Got a-
There, you
Look at this.
do
Look at
jump
this.
rope.
Look at the rabbis serving you.
I love that.
Two of them, we can do double Dutch.
This is it. We need two people. Let's work it out. Okay, so now we're going to write a song, you and I. Ignore the others for now.
Very easy.
So, you've heard a few ideas bandied about tonight. Do you have in mind some sort of, let's say, a title that you think is germane and maybe encapsulates some of the ideas that you were interested in?
Renewal.
Renewal? Make a song about renewal. I don't think I can do that. Any other ideas? What's your name again?
Sandra.
What's your last name?
Barubi.
Barubi.
It's her French name.
Barubi. I know a lady. She's in a coat of dark violet. And I'm sitting next to her. Oh yeah, she's so demure. She's French, Barubi. She's groovy. She's got on a heart of diamonds. She gives me fuel. She told me to write a song about renewal. It's Jewish hope against fatalism, not any communism. I'm talking about the prism of light that's coming from her diamonds. She's so groovy, Miss Barubi. Where them drums, Mr. Leader? Bring 'em up to me. You can sit 'em on the floor. You can be just what you want to be. The tom-tom blowing on the floor. Miss Barubi is a lady I'm beginning to adore. She said something. She's got the rule. She's never cruel. She's kind. She's got a wise mind. Like I said, she's fuel. She wants a song about renewal. Jewish pride. She's by my side. She's got blue eyes. She's got Jew eyes. She can realize what's going on. She's a tender fawn. She goes from nighttime to dawn. Her mind is never off. It's always on. Barubi. I don't know where she comes from, but I wanna go there. I like her looks and I like her brown hair. It matches that dark violet in a coat. And if she could sing, I'd like to hear a note. Maybe she can't sing, but I know she can. Just sing anything. I'm a accepting man. Don't worry that you'll be wrong. You're always right. Somebody like you who's always shining the light. Barubi. Everybody say it. Barubi. Barubi. It's French, don't you know? Barubi. Tell you she got fuel. She's like a train of 1,000 mules. She talks about Jewish renewal. Barubi, she's so groovy and I'm going to love her Let's slow it down. We're in California. They call it Los Angeles town, but I call it, oh yeah. We're changing it up now. Don't you know she fills my loving cup now? She's got that microphone like she's gonna say something. I know her mind is hopping and jumping. What do you have to say at this time, Sandra?
I'm a new member and wanted to meet everyone in the congregation.
You know, take it down one time. She's got that comic timing. She's wearing the diamond. She's always chiming in with some witty sayings and some wisdom. I know that I'd come to sit by the right person tonight.
That's right.
That's right, she's a shining light. Let's kick it in now. Woo-hoo. We're gonna take this song now, which just sounds like a country piece, and then I'm gonna change it up to a sound that everybody knows. This is a song that gave that entrepreneur a little bit of fear and loathing. Hevenu shalom alechem. Hevenu shalom alechem. Hevenu shalom alechem. Hevenu shalom shalom. Sing in the mic. Shalom alechem. Hevenu shalom alechem. Hevenu shalom. Hevenu shalom alechem. Hevenu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem.
Okay, wait. Pete, can you do that break that is so typical of Jewish songs? You know,
Oh yeah. This is that riff.
yeah.
So here is the. I know what you're talking about. This is very true. People are looking for the thing, the energy, the fuel of renewal that has fueled the Jewish person through the ages, through the millennia. Make sure you don't tell the others. This is just between us. It has to do with that song.
It's a riff.
It's a riff. And that riff, first of all, the Jew, when they clap, just clap with this once. I want to see if this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is right. Okay, so this is, and there's two things going on. That's the Jewish clap. Now, I will tell you about another clap. Now, this is to explain the clap. It's like clap, 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 clap. Now, here's how the others clap, which is what I grew up with. So it is clap, 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 clap. Oh, it's on the offbeat. So you gotta clap, clap. Give me that clap. Woo! Oh, yeah. Now, there's something a little, if you really tune into that clap, it's a little bit lacking in sneut. It's a little bit, you would want to procreate to this beat. I'm quite frankly, 2, 3, 4. And this clap, you want to march through the ages. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now this is the secret I want no one to tell. It comes in this song.
Stop streaming. Stop streaming.
Stop streaming altogether. Okay, so look, this is it. I'm gonna tell you what it is, and then we're gonna go through it. So I'm gonna practice it, and I'll tell you where it is. So you go through the song. Shalom Aleichem. If it is Shalom Aleichem, okay, Shalom Aleichem. This is it. Ifenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. That is the energy of our people, right there.
Yeah.
Steve talks about the text. Yes, the text. But it's this. Are you ready? When we get to that part, the thought process, the kavanah, is to really think about the movement of this people through time, be very sanguine about its potential, because now you have the secret. Ready?
Yes.
And I love your voice. Kick it in.
Okay.
Avenu shalom aleichem. Avenu shalom aleichem. Avenu shalom aleichem. Not yet. Avenu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. Avenu shalom. Coming up. Aleichem. Avenu shalom aleichem. Avenu shalom aleichem.
Shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem.
Louder. It's louder than punk rock. 2, 3, 4. Down, down, shalom aleichem. Avenu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. And now that you got the secret, okay, everybody can go home and get back to the groove, but only take out that secret when it's time. Otherwise, just sit here with this little groove. I just want to say to my man Yoshi and my main man Steve, Mr. Junkyard Son, all I want to say, we all had a good time. I wish I could stay to the rising of the sun. Oh, baby, Stephen S. Wise, big surprise. I let the secret go. Now you know Stephen S. Wise. This show already ended, ladies and gentlemen.
Peter Himmelman, ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Steve Leder, please give them a round of applause. Immediately after our program, which is over right now, you can come into the lobby and please take a little Peter Himmelman and a little Rabbi Leder home with you, because some of their books are out there. I'm sure they'll be happy to sign them. Thank you to everybody who made our program possible this evening. Thank you for coming. Thanks for joining us online, and we'll see you around real soon, I hope.